Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Hyperconscious Podcast. Alan, what is hyperconscious?
Once you understand why something is the way that it is, now you have the power to change it. Great conversations with great people and great questions are the keys to the kingdom of unlocking your consciousness.
Every single action that you do starts as a thought. When you control the way you think, you will control the way you act, and you will control the way you live. That is hyperconscious. Ladies and gentlemen, the Hyperconscious Podcast is proudly sponsored by our friend and mentor, David Meltzer of the Playbook Podcast. He was kind enough to join us on episode 144 and 135.
Folks, it has become Kevin and I's mission in life to help you realize that the life of your dreams is right on the other side of you becoming the greatest version of yourself. Let us help you do that.
I rarely do these things twice in such a short amount of time, but you guys impress me. I believe in people that provide value and of our service. You two guys are on your way to huge fulfillment, purpose, and profitability, and I look forward to helping you both.
We appreciate that more than you know. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of the Hyperconscious Podcast. We hope you enjoyed our latest episode where Alan and I sat down and did a small talks episode on how your state affects everything. Today, for episode number 213, we are going to do a Scratching the Surface episode on what happens when you get your snow globe shooketh.
Shooketh.
You like that?
That's a new word.
What a powerful intro that was.
That was really, really well done.
I appreciate that.
So, really quickly, as you know, first, I want you, before we jump into this episode, to go to the hyperconsciouspodcast.com and click on join hashtag hyperconsciousnation. Folks, we want to make all of you more hyperconscious, and there's actually a mastermind going on with hyperconscious folks soon, I believe this Saturday. So if you want to get around more like-minded people, if you want to feel supported and you want to feel understood, that is the place to do it.
And if you want to help out your boys, if this episode, any part of it resonates with you or you think it will help somebody else or maybe a loved one, if you are on the gram, if you could just share it, make sure you tag Alan and myself so we can message you and thank you. If you want to share it, that would help us make more people hyperconscious, and that is the goal that we're going for here. And we appreciate you. Alan and I were just talking about that. You guys have been doing that for us, so that means the world. Thank you so much. We cannot do this without you. We are so very grateful for every single one of you guys.
And we will reshare it when you share it.
Yes.
Well, I'll speak for myself. Kevin may or may not.
I do.
You forget.
No, I don't.
Sometimes.
Not
no,
true.
you actually have been doing a really good job of that.
No,
BS.
Give me a little credit.
BS. I meant PS. He is actually doing
What
a
does
really
PS stand for?
I don't know.
Me either, man. Just like RSVP. What does that mean?
What? I don't know.
Right, see? I'm bringing. You told me you had some humdingers. You didn't know I was ready.
I don't know the answers to these
All right,
questions.
before we go, before we start, what does getting the snow globe shooketh mean?
So, anytime what you think you know, so there's a lot of different things that can shake the snow globe, but basically life events like the loss of a loved one, a near-death experience like a car accident, an illness, or the loss of a pet, a difficult conversation, the end of a relationship, a tough conversation with a mentor or a coach. Basically, any time where what you thought you knew, you realize you didn't know. So going from thinking you know to, oh my God, now I know that I don't know, and what do you do in that discomfort? So this past weekend, we went to Your World Within Live 2019.
Woo!
Huge success, big wins. Let's just say this. Behind the scenes, this is a bigger event than Kevin and I have ever been a part of in the past, and so now we have a lot of clarity on what we do not know.
Right.
And now we know what we need to know, and then we also got clarity on what our strengths and weaknesses are as well as individuals and as professionals. Anyone who did attend the event, there's a lot of personal development and stories and lessons that each speaker and person at that event really dumped onto the audience, for lack of better phrasing. And so when that happens and you go to an event like this, you get the snow globe shaken. Shooketh. When we went to HPA, which is High Performance Academy, Brendan Burchard's event, we met Anthony Trucks. There was a bunch of speakers. Basically, it takes your life the way you've been living it And picture someone coming up to you and just shaking you, and your head is a snow globe. The snow goes everywhere, and all of the data points that you think you know gets shooketh up. Shooketh up. And what lands is going to be a more evolved version of you as long as you can sit in that discomfort. So I prepped some questions for Kevin here, and I just want to provide some context as to why we're doing this episode. So, scratching the surface on getting the snow globe shooketh.
Right.
Okay.
Fair work.
Events like this past weekend can be incredibly uncomfortable and overwhelming.
Yeah.
I was one of the speakers and have been to a lot of networking events like this. And I, too, had to literally run away to the bathroom at one point to escape the discomfort. Truth. You actually sat in it.
I sat
proud
in
of
it.
you. Proud of you. We often talk about getting the snow globe shaken and how it's a good thing and how it's the only way to really grow. Question for Kevin. Why do you say that, and why do you think that is? Please describe what it's like for you.
So I think when you get the snow globe shooketh, I'm just going to keep saying that. I like it. What it is, it's a massive amount of feedback all at once. And
Right.
as we always say, and we always preach, feedback is nothing to fear. It does hurt. It does suck. You will get overwhelmed, but you're learning stuff that you didn't know, and that means you can now operate on a different level than you could before. You have more feedback, which means you have more awareness, which means you have more of what you should do, what you shouldn't do, what worked, what didn't work. I think the problem is, so that's why I think it's positive. I think it's positive because it's feedback. All feedback can be positive if you allow it to be.
You didn't always believe that.
I did not always believe that, but that's
Why?
because I didn't have any confidence in myself.
Okay.
I assumed that, like, again, so when we sat down, a great example of us getting our snow globe shooketh was when we were sitting down at dinner with Evan Carmichael.
Oh, yeah.
He was going over our YouTube channel, and he kept saying, these numbers are brutal. They are brutal. And a couple people at the table, a couple young ladies, I overheard them speaking, and they said, "Oh my God, I don't know how they're not crying right now. Like, Evan is tearing their channel apart." And I heard them, and I just kind of like giggled to myself. It was like, this is nothing.
Right.
This is nothing compared
We
to...
sign up for this every other week.
Before, I used to allow it to affect my identity. I'd be like, "Oh my God, I suck
Right.
because of this." No, now I know what to do. The only reason it sucks is because I didn't know what to do, and now I do.
So what do you do?
Follow through. I changed. I literally sent Evan a video yesterday afternoon
Right.
of me making the changes he suggested.
Right.
You now have the feedback. Make the changes.
Yeah.
You're really going to feel bad about yourself if you leave a networking event where you learned all of these things
And don't
and
implement.
you don't do anything. Because then you're going to say, "Oh, I missed out on all that opportunity." When your snow globe gets shooketh, as Alan said, stuff is going to land in a different place. And now you get to decide what you want to keep and what you want to get rid of. And I think I've told everybody at that event, like, prepare for the next week or so to be strange, because that's what it is. It feels to me like I'm questioning everything.
Right.
Am I more confident than I thought? Am I less confident than I thought? Am I better than I thought? Am I worse than I thought? It depends on what the event is. It depends on the mindset you go in with. But it literally is going to shift and make you second guess things that you thought you knew.
The simplest way, I just had a breakthrough moment. I do when Kevin goes off. So the best way to describe the snow globe getting shaken is that you're questioning yourself. You're questioning everything.
Everything.
Right. I remember after that car accident, I was questioning everything, the way I lived my life. That's what we do on this podcast. We're shaking your snow globe every week.
Yeah, that's the
4
goal.
times a week. That's the goal. Why? Because what lands will be a greater version of you.
And that's why we have the guests we have on, so we can pick their brains and have. I love the fact that sometimes we'll have a guest say something, and Alan and I will look at each other and be like, "That was absolute fire."
Yeah.
The reason we're doing that is because I hope you're watching or listening to this saying, "Wow, I never thought of things that way."
Right.
That's the goal.
Right.
That's why we have the people on that we do.
So you mentioned awareness. I'm kind of going off the flashcards here for a second, but
I
you
see the
mentioned
timer is at
no.
four zeros. What time does that mean? How many minutes are we at?
I forgot.
Yeah, Jeff
Turn on the timer. What are we at?
9 minutes.
9 minutes. Okay, and we have how many more?
We have 6 more minutes. 15.
This is scratching the surface.
We have 24 more minutes.
Okay, perfect. All right.
You have a dramatic reading, just so I know?
No.
Okay, cool.
Nope. That's for Dr. Robert Scott.
Okay. Who we will be interviewing after this, and he will be dropping on Sunday.
Exactly. Good call. Yeah. Wow. All right. So back on the rails. You mentioned awareness.
Yes.
So I often tell the story of if a parent is with a 2-year-old and the 2-year-old's awareness is very low because they're 2, they don't know that cars are dangerous. Whose responsibility is it to keep the 2-year-old safe?
Right.
It's the parents.
Yeah.
Why? Because they have a higher level of awareness. Okay. When you get the snow globe shaken, what are the benefits of that, like tangible benefits? Number 1 is a raise in awareness. Can you give an example?
Yeah, for sure. Leaving that event, although my snow globe was shaken, I became aware that I can do all of that. I can speak on stage. I can have somebody stop me before I go to lunch and sit down with them. It just proved to me that I'm capable of doing all those things.
Right.
Brendan Burchard, when I left that event, I said to myself, I'm far more aware now that there are plenty of people who need to hear my story, and I can connect with them. I had people crying. I made lifelong friends.
I know.
The thing is, it just depends on what you choose to become aware of. I also became aware of pain points. Like
Can you give an example of that?
I have to get far better at traveling and managing my state.
Yeah,
for sure.
Right.
But the thing is, I'm not in my mind. I'm not saying I can't do that anymore because of this. What I'm saying is, I just have to get better,
Right.
and I can get better. The only reason I can get better is because now I'm aware that I'm not good.
I know.
And it didn't kill me. It didn't kill me. That's super important. Getting your snow globe shooketh, will not kill you. It's just going to be overwhelming for a little bit. And it feels like nothing makes sense anymore. But that's fine because afterwards, when everything lands, you get to sift through and figure out what is your fears, what are your insecurities, what is truth, what can I actually take action on, what changes do I want to make, what do I want to keep the same, what actually is and what actually isn't. It just takes time.
I remember you and I sitting down listening to a Brendan Burchard. It was an interview or a podcast. I forget when. But he said, someone asked him, what is the number 1 reason you think most people don't grow? And he said they avoid feedback.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
And I remember that was a breakthrough for us. At one point, we didn't realize that.
Right.
And basically, when he said this, when you're watching Netflix, there's no feedback. There's no reflection on you because it's easy to watch Netflix.
Right.
All you have to do is sit there and watch. Shaking the snow globe, you used to at one point subconsciously avoid that, right?
Yeah.
We've all been there.
Yeah.
And we still do to some extent, believe it or not. If something we think is going to be painful, sometimes we don't want to know the truth because the truth hurts. Like, if you've ever taken your shirt off at the beach when you know you haven't been putting in the work, that's feedback.
Yeah.
Because the sun shows everything. No matter how lean you think you are, when you get in the sun, you are not. It sucks. You're talking to Kevin, who used to avoid feedback. What do you say to him to encourage him to go pursue it?
I think I would probably use an analogy because analogies are life. It's very easy. Say you had a hole in your boat. It's very easy to pretend that hole isn't there, but you cannot plug the hole unless you know it's there. And you need the feedback. You need the feedback that something's wrong in order to have the necessity to create change to make it right. And that used to be a giant weakness of mine. It used to be a giant weakness. But now you have to understand and lock in the fact that I can get better at this, whatever it is. Maybe your ceiling is lower. Like maybe you'll never be the greatest podcaster of all time. That's fine. I'll never be the greatest teacher of all time, maybe. But can I become a better teacher than I am? Absolutely. Can you become a better podcaster than you are? Absolutely. But you first have to get the feedback. When we listen to episode 1 of the podcast, it is physically painful.
Right.
I start sweating. It's painful.
It's brutal.
It's painful. But,
brutal.
But
That's what made us the men we
that's
are
what
today.
made us the men we are today. And
There's no other way.
That's one of the things. Again, I did a rap a while ago on like the filters in Snapchat. If you always use the filters on Snapchat, you have no idea what you really look like in pictures. Therefore, you have no pain/feedback. Therefore, you have no necessity to change.
Yeah.
And you need necessity to change. That's what feedback is.
I often use the analogy of instead of putting on makeup, why not hydrate better?
Right.
You can still use makeup, but like hydrate better first.
Yeah.
Because that's better for your long-term health,
Yeah.
not just... Yeah, feedback is huge, huge.
Yeah, and I think just go to relationships real quick.
Yeah.
How have I been doing? That is a hard question to ask if you're afraid of feedback.
Especially if you've been screwing up.
But if you've been screwing up,
That's when you need to
that's
ask.
when you need to ask.
Right.
And that's when you need to hear it. You don't even need to ask. You know, I remember I always used to think like, we need to talk. if you ever get a text message that says we need to talk, my initial reaction is, oh no, how do I get out of this?
Right.
But now it's like, okay, yes we do then. Obviously we do need to talk if you think we do.
Right.
Let's do it. It's not easy.
Same Kevin, different approach.
Yeah.
Different
Well, it's
reframe.
It's a different Kevin.
Yeah, well, what you create creates you, as Anthony Trucks would say.
Yes.
As
So
Anthony-
don't avoid feedback, because if you do, it's going to come and bite you in the butt eventually.
Forms of feedback, the scale.
Yep.
You're much pictures, videos. Like people always say this. People in
Bank
Hollywood,
account.
bank account, absolutely. I realized this. I'll never forget when I first realized this. It'll be quick. People used to say like, "Oh, they're in Hollywood. Of course they're in Hollywood. Look at how good looking they are." But wait a minute. Part of the reason they're good looking is because they have to be on camera.
Yeah.
So they've taken better care of themselves because they're constantly getting feedback. If you've ever seen yourself on camera, it is feedback. You can tell if you're hydrating well. You can tell if you're in shape. You can tell if you're lean. I'm not saying not to love yourself unconditionally. What I am saying is if you do want to improve as a human being, you cannot avoid the feedback. I can't even tell you, every single time, for the listeners, every single time I review this podcast, I see at least 5 to 10 things that I need to improve upon. At least. I would argue the only reason why I've improved as a podcaster, and I hope you all agree, is because I review the reps. And every single time I'm framing it, okay, Alan, how do we get better? What can you do better? What did you do well? Start there. What did I do well? And then what can I improve? Okay, next question.
Next question.
Scratching the surface on getting your snow globe shooketh.
Yes.
We had our bi-weekly coaching call with David Meltzer earlier today.
Yes, right before this.
He told us his schedule for this week and this weekend.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah.
He makes what we did this past weekend at Your Open Live look like
Child's play.
complete and utter child's play. Okay. Question for Kevin. For the listeners, how do you remember in those moments that you can eventually get to that level too? And how do you maintain belief in yourself under what seems impossible?
You start with what seems impossible now. If you're watching or listening to this, something seems impossible to you. Maybe it's one, or maybe it's not impossible. Maybe it seems like a reach. Maybe it's doing one podcast a week. Maybe it's doing one vlog a week. Maybe it's reaching out to 10 people for business a week. Maybe it's saving $25. Whatever it is for you that seems impossible or seems difficult, prove to yourself that you can do it. And that will magnify. Again, it's crazy to me looking back 2 years ago. I was not like this at all. I had no level of belief like I do now. The only way I got this level of belief is constantly proving to myself that, one, you are capable. Two, if everything fails, you get another try tomorrow. Failure does not happen overnight. You're not going to wake up tomorrow and be a quote-unquote failure. You're going to wake up tomorrow with pain, possibly feedback, but you get another try unless you're not here anymore. And that's why being grateful for being alive is, if you get another day on this earth, you get another chance.
Can I bring a distinction?
Yeah.
I agree with Kevin when he says that you are not going to wake up tomorrow a failure. You're only a failure if you stop trying.
Yeah.
But I do believe you will sometimes feel like a failure.
Well, yeah. But you're also going to feel like you're the best in the world. Neither are true.
Right.
You know, it depends on where you are on the drive to 5.
Right.
And that's another thing I want to talk about that. Another thing about getting the snow globe shaken is you'll get out of an event and the drive to 5 will not make sense to you anymore because you'll either be arrogant when you're used to being humble or you'll be humble when you're used to being arrogant.
Yeah.
And that's
Right.
I told a lot of people that. I told a lot of people
It's so true.
do not leave this room and assume you're better than everybody else on the face of the earth, because I can assure you that you're not. I've done it. I know how it works. And you will revert eventually. Maybe it won't be all the way down, but you got to figure out where you actually lie. It's like, it's just, you get all the good feelings. You get all the good vibes. And then you assume it's going to be like that forever. That's fine. When you leave an event, hammer work. Hammer stuff that you're afraid to do, because it's going to get harder. And you have to really leverage those good feelings when you have them, because they won't stay. What was the original question?
I always get humbled.
Right.
I almost always get humbled.
Right.
Yeah.
And I always get more confident.
Yeah. I think that the litmus test is, how are you when you're alone in bed? What is your confidence level there? That's most likely your baseline. Now be aware of that, and now go find a way to get to the other side of drive to 5.
Did I answer the full question? I went off there a little bit. I just want to make sure I answer the full question.
Let's go back.
I was reviewing the episode the last two that we did, and I didn't answer the question fully, and I was mad at myself for that. So I wanted to make sure
nice.
I
Look at that improvement.
Yes.
You seek feedback. Okay, for the listeners, how do you remember in those moments when Dave shakes the snow globe every other week that you can eventually get to his level, and how do you maintain belief in yourself under what seems impossible?
Yeah, so
yeah, you did answer it.
Yeah, the maintaining belief in what seems impossible. At one point, everything you're doing seemed impossible. At
Right.
one point, us doing one podcast a week with a
felt
guest
impossible.
was impossible.
Yeah.
We had no idea how we were going to do it. Now we do 3 others and a guest, and coaching, and traveling, and the gym, and a relationship, and running a business, and YouTube, and a website. So everything seems impossible at first. You have to work your way up, and that's with discipline, and self-belief comes with, discipline and commitment, consistency. Yeah.
If you've ever done fitness, the first time you bench pressed,
Probably not good.
25 pounds felt like a lot.
Yeah.
Now you're probably hammering that. Okay. Scratching the surface on getting the snow globe shook.
Some would say.
Shooketh. Dave just taught us a new framework that made us realize that our current system of success is not nearly as optimized as it needs to be to
Yes.
achieve the level of mastery, impact, and income that we desire.
Yes.
Correct. Question. So, not question yet. It is literally Dave's job to shake the snow globe. And how well we can handle him shaking the snow globe will actually determine how much he's willing to shake it. That's another thing. For those of you out there with mentors, the more you can handle, the more they'll dump on you and the more growth you'll get. So remember that. Question for Kevin. For the listeners, can you please explain how you feel after those calls? How you go about making those changes? And how you find the courage to step back into the ring after getting your ass kicked?
Wow. All right. Number one, I stepped in that ring to get my ass kicked. There's no... By getting your ass kicked, you're winning. This isn't an actual fight where if you lose, you don't get to fight again. You actually get better at fighting by losing in this instance. And because you're losing is actually a victory in short term and long term. We make immediate changes. Immediate changes. We already drew on the board our new system of success on how to capitalize on what Dave taught us. That's the reason we're going there. The reason we're going into the ring is to learn. He is so much better than we are.
Yeah.
If we thought we could
He's
win,
leagues ahead.
if we thought we could win that fight with Dave Meltzer, we wouldn't enter the ring. It wouldn't make sense. Why would you risk injury for no reward? It wouldn't make any sense. We're getting all the reward. And the injury is pleasure, actually, because it's helping us. So,
You consider it pleasure now.
oh yeah.
You used to not always.
yeah.
I've seen you transform.
Yeah.
So I'm with you. I want to get my ass kicked as much as possible with mentors because that's how you grow.
Yeah.
But I wasn't always like that.
Yes, you were. I wasn't always
You
like
weren't
that.
always like that. What changed?
Number one, getting crystal clear on why they're actually your mentor. It's going to be very hard for you to allow somebody to kick your ass if they don't have the results you want. And the way they deliver it, too. He's very good at delivering it. And I think I have thicker skin than I did before because of the reps, because I've done this long enough. Now, if somebody said, like, you're not a good podcaster, I don't know. I'm sure that would hurt. I'm sure that would really shake the snow globe for me. But when it comes to like, oh, you guys aren't really doing well in business, I know.
Right.
I know. That's why I'm here.
Yeah. Can you help me?
That's why I'm here. If you have the results I want, I'm going to listen. I'm going to listen because...
That's humility, though.
Well,
not
yeah.
a lot of people have that.
Well,
I'm not saying they shouldn't.
No,
I'm
right,
saying
right,
how do we
right.
encourage people to have that level of humility?
it's if you don't have that level of... What are you going to do? You're going to be cynical and say like, oh, that person's a dick or an ass for...
Isn't that crazy?
It's
Dave
not.
kicked us.
I don't think it's crazy.
No.
I think it's...
Dave literally gave us really difficult feedback because he cares about us.
Right. Same
Isn't
with
it
Evan.
interesting how some people... Right, same with Evan. Evan actually cares tremendously about whether or not we succeed. That's why he ripped us a new one, quote
But
unquote.
they know what we need to succeed.
That's what I'm saying. So for someone who took that as an attack rather than love,
Do you think...
reframe that.
Do you think somebody who took that as an attack rather than love would be able to get into that room in the first place?
No,
'Cause
that's the problem.
You got to muscle up and level up to that level. I wouldn't... This is like... I'm far more comfortable than I've ever been on these calls.
Right.
Like Evan Carmichael, talking to us about YouTube would have crippled me a year ago. Genuinely.
Right.
And this time it was like, okay, what do I do? How do I do it? I'll do it now.
Yeah.
Right? I've just leveled up, just like everything else. Just like everything else. If you're a nurse, the first time you walked into the hospital, you were probably unbelievably nervous.
Yeah.
Now you see things that Alan and I could never see
Right.
and be capable of dealing with. You do it all the time.
Right.
It's just what you do consistently, you get better at. Just make sure you're doing it consistently and make sure you know there's a payoff at the end, or at least you believe there is.
Because if you don't believe there is, you won't do it
You're
consistently.
going to tap out.
Yeah.
You're going to tap out.
Right.
Understandable. It's difficult. It's difficult.
Fire.
Like 3 to 4 minutes.
Okay, so last question for Kevin is this: can you please explain? This is a simple one, but there's three parts. Not three parts. Three specifics I want you to give. Can you please explain for the listeners 3 specific times when your snow globe got shaken, when you realized that what you thought you knew, you really didn't, and it wasn't optimal? What did you do about it that brought on positive change? So 3 specific times where your snow globe got shaken, and what did you do about it?
All right. High Performance Academy is number 1. What did I do about it? I had no idea what to do. I just let it settle, and then you and I talked about it. I got very, very cocky. You got very humble.
Yeah.
We had a breakdown one day, and I was like, yo, what's going on with you, man? and
Don't leave me!
And then over time, it ended up going back, and then we really figured out, like, we got clear on why did that happen in the first place.
Right.
The drive to 5 is everything. That has been a game changer for us. So what it has done is it has made us create frameworks to figure this out.
Right.
Without the snow globe getting shaken, we wouldn't have the drive to 5. We wouldn't have the pain-pleasure pendulum. We wouldn't have a lot of things.
Oh, I remember
So that's
that
number
day.
1.
Yeah.
Number 2, I would say, is failing as miserably as I did at one of my previous relationships. That shook the snow globe for everything, because I always prided myself on being the guy that you told all your friends about. That's my goal. If I'm in a relationship with you, I want you to tell all your friends how good your relationship is. That's my goal always. And I pride myself on being good at something, and I failed that miserably. Like, you really got to look yourself in the mirror and figure out a lot. And for me, it was facing my fears. It was getting out of my comfort zone. It was realizing and becoming aware of the fact that I am insecure, that I'm not always as confident as I portray. That was where hyperconscious came up. Hyperconsciousness was created from that breakup, basically. So without that breakup, that feedback, that change, that awareness, this wouldn't be a thing. And then number 3 was this event. This event shook the snow globe.
Yeah, it did.
What did I do? I immediately became aware of what was shaken, why it was shaken, and how do I need to adjust things, and what do I need to focus on moving forward. I need to make sure my state does not affect my interactions with people. If a listener comes up to me and I'm in a bad state, unresourceful state, I got to switch that, because they don't know and they don't care. And they shouldn't.
Right.
They
I just
shouldn't.
thought of you barging into my room today.
I almost saw him naked.
And
I didn't.
You shook my snow globe.
I shook your snow globe.
So,
That would have cracked my snow globe.
Right.
You gotta go.
That's really important. Okay, 10-second blip for getting the snow globe shooketh.
Getting the snow globe shooketh. Okay. It may be difficult in the moment when you're unbelievably overwhelmed and everything you thought was, you question whether it is or not. But that is actually a power position, because some people go through their entire life assuming something is the way it is, and they find out on their deathbed that it isn't.
Wow.
Not bad.
Wow.
Not bad,
I
huh?
can't follow that. I can't. I hate that word. Can't. I can. I must.
But you won't.
But I will try. 10-second blip for this. Let me think. Give me 2 seconds.
2 seconds. So you get 8-second blip.
8-second blip. Stop. Okay, I have it. It is a natural part of the human condition to avoid pain. Feedback is often painful, especially in an arena that we are not yet competent in. I think the avoidance of pain is the biggest mistake we can make, because it is the opposite of growth. No pain, no gain.
Love it. Love it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we hope you enjoyed this. Up next, we are sitting down with one of Alan's mentors and somebody I have heard a lot about. I'm unbelievably excited to meet him. Show the book.
Yes.
Show the book. Mr. Dr. Robert Scott, we are sitting down with. Maybe tell him a little something about this gentleman quickly.
I will. So he's 69 years old. He's traveled the world many, many times. Used to be a top finance guy for a software company back in the 90s. Incredible human being. He wrote a book called Exceptional. He's written 20 books, but my first word, exceptional, enthusiastic, and caring, my first one is exceptional. So this book resonates so strongly with me. I cannot wait for this episode. The wisest wizard is coming on the show.
And I am going to treat this as if I'm getting the chance to interview a mentor, no holds bar, figure out what does a mentor look for, How do you find a good mentor? All of those things. So we hope you will enjoy, and we will talk to you on Sunday.
Talk soon.
Bye.